Hi everyone, welcome to the 12th Standard English class. I'm Jasmine and this is the 13th module. In this module, we will continue with the chapter An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum from the book Flamingo, written by Stephen Spender. In the previous module, we discussed all the four stanzas with its explanation. Now let's have a quick summary of the poem. An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum, written by Stephen Spender. Through this poem, the poet highlights the social injustice prevailing in our society. The poet begins the poem by illustrating a handful of students sitting inside a classroom in a slum school. The children are far removed from the waves and breeze and are deprived of sun and fresh air. They seem like rootless weeds, thin, weak, and unwanted, with their hair scattered around their pale and colorless faces. The poet describes a tall girl sitting with her head bowed down as if she is a wilting flower. Not far from her, he notices a boy, frail and sickly, seemingly made from paper and with his eyes like those of rats. Another boy in the class has twisted bones, a genetic disorder that he seems to have inherited along with the poverty. In contrast to these two, a sweet, quiet boy sits almost unnoticed at the back of the dim class. He appears to be daydreaming. The poet imagines that he might be yearning to play freely like a squirrel on a tree, far away from his current boxed in surroundings. The poet then describes the environment in the classroom. The walls, painted so cream, are dingy and are decorated with donated things. A picture of Shakespeare, an image of the dawn over a city, a painting of a flower decked mountain valley, and most significantly, a map depicting the world. These things represent a world of beauty, learning, and joy that is far removed from the student's world. For them, the reality is a grey fog outside the windows, a life full of adversity. The reality includes narrow streets and grey skies, which are stifling and which offer no chance at betterment. Thus, their life was in stark contrast to the world described in their books. For the children, the words of their books are meaningless. Next, the poet speaks of Shakespeare and the map as being negative influences. They are wicked because the things the students see on the map or read in their books only functions as temptation. The lives of children are led in the dim and cramped reality of the slum. The children of the slum have a deprived existence. They are undernourished with their bones showing through skin. Even the spectacles some children require are made of cracked glass with heavy steel frames. They are forced to meet their needs with substandard and broken things, perhaps those that are discarded by the rich. The poet laments the fact that the existence of these children revolves around foggy slums. He declares in anger that the classroom maps should be covered with slums because most of these children will experience nothing else in their lives. In the end, the poet pleads to the authorities, school governors or inspectors, or even visitors to help these children break out of their limited existence. The children should be allowed to escape the repressive environment of the slum and the narrow windows which have doomed them to a life of misery and deprivation. They should be able to live life that all children have a right to, playing out in the open in green fields, under the blue skies, at the bright sun, and reading and learning. The last few lines are strongly expressive of the poet's wish for the children to live a fulfilling and natural life. The poet hopes that the children's future will be bright and that they will be able to successfully utilize the education that they get. Now let's look at the theme and tone of the poem. The poem deals with themes of poverty and alienation among children living in a slum. The poet uses the setting of an elementary school classroom located in a slum to explore these themes and concludes with a rallying cry for improvement in the lives of the slum children. In the first stanza, the poet introduces us to the students in the classroom and describes some of them. The main underlying theme here is their extreme poverty and the consequent lack of any sort of enthusiasm, with the sole exception of a little boy who still retains some of his innocence. In the second stanza, the poet describes the various items in the classroom. However, at the end of the stanza, he comments on the hopelessness in children's life. In the third stanza, the poet reflects that the temptations provided by the various items in the classroom, such as maps, might tempt the children to steal. He goes on to describe in detail the pathetic conditions in the day to day lives of these children. In the fourth and final stanza, the poet raises a rallying cry for change. He urges the powers that be, and perhaps the readers too, to remove the metaphorical walls that hold back these children, condemning them to a life of abject poverty. He imagines a future where the children will lead happy, free, and knowledgeable lives. The theme in this paragraph is that of change and optimism. Now let's discuss the tone of the poem. The tone of the poem is somber and philosophical. The theme revolves around the profound problem that affects our society at large. The universal gap between rich and the poor is highlighted. It also highlights the irony of life in 21st century where the world has made so many advancements yet an atmosphere of gloominess prevails. So, with this session, we have discussed the theme, tone, and summary of the poem. I hope the session was helpful. Thank you.